like the potential of longevity that it has. Like even if it's as simple as, reusable straws or like handing out cookies or anything, even on a larger scale, like there's a lot of room to create like long-standing events and long-standing programs that impact, more than just the freshman class or more than just other student government members. So I feel like that's a long-winded answer to your question. Yeah, that's another event that is really just kind of, they nailed it.
Any that either of you can think of, Faith or Ilona?
Yeah, definitely. I remember my freshman year, it was kind of such a busy day. It was a Wednesday. I remember so specifically because it was Hip Hop Wednesday. So Green Street was like so many people, everyone's playing music. It was like such great vibes. And Senate, I believe, was doing like a tie-dye event like over on Davis Field. And then the Inclusion and Equity Committee in Froco was doing surveys out on Green Street. But Inclusion and Equity, if you filled out the survey, you got to pie a Froco member. So it was just like very, very fun because I got to come up and I got to pie some of my former Froco members. And we had like our former student body president, Izzy Rushton, come by and she got pied. And it was just like very fun because I still have like the t-shirt that I tie-dyed from like another student government thing that was happening at the same time. And then, just all those memories of, I ended up getting pied even though I wasn't a part of it. So I definitely remember I had to go to like a meeting right after and I walked in and I had like pie on me and I was like, I'm really sorry, but just having a good time out on Green Street.
Green Street's always a party.
Green Street is always a party, especially on Hip Hop Wednesdays.
Any that you can think of, Ilona?
Okay. Well, like I said, we couldn't really host any big events like that because of COVID. But probably like a collaborative event that we all did was probably Friender. I could talk all day about that.
You want to talk a bit about that for freshmen who don't know what it is?
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things to come out of student government in a while. I'm super proud of you guys for that one.
Yeah. So Friender is an initiative that my freshman council came up with where a big Google form was put out all over social media, sent in dorm group chats, all of that stuff. And it basically just asked like general information about you and like some fun facts and little like silly questions like what side of TikTok you're on and all of that. And you would be matched with another student. And so you would be sent their contact information and you could go on like a little Friender date. And so it was a combination of a ton of different committees. It even became its own committee my year. So like my favorite collaborative memory is seeing all of the people fill out the form, like all of their responses coming in. And I think in the end we had 300, 400 people do it. And so we sat there all after a meeting and like matched people and like we didn't have the money to like pay for this really fancy system, so we all did it by hand.
I still can't believe you guys did that, like personally match each and every person. That was so epic.
Yeah, it was a lot of like, okay, this person vibes, I think this person would vibe well. Okay, cool, they're matched now. So it was a lot of gut feelings with that. But that's probably my favorite one. And then having receiving feedback after of like, oh yeah, like I actually met with my match and they were cool. Or like I had like people emailing the Friender account and they were like, hey, like my match never responded, like can I get another one? And it was just like, it was so cool like seeing
the impact you guys made. Yeah,
exactly.
It's even more impressive that during COVID, I think a lot of people thought like college isn't the same, like you can't do as many things, but you guys really took that opportunity to create something that no one's ever created before that could have always been on campus. Like freshmen always are trying to make more friends and you guys really went running with the idea and did a great job.
Yeah, I think that's what I wish COVID wasn't a thing, but I don't really dread on it as much just because it made us get more creative like that. It made us think outside of the box, like, oh, we can't table on Green Street, so is there a way we could do it virtually or something like that?
So next, Faith and Aidan, do you guys want to talk a little bit more about the freshman counselor tree? I didn't even mention that at all in the beginning.
Yeah, Faith, you can start. You can start.
Okay, yeah. So the freshman council retreat. So after all 40 of our members have interviewed and been selected, we go on a little one night retreat, and we are going to go up to Camp Long. Hopefully, that's in Aiken. We're going to just do a lot of team building activities, learn a lot about student government, a lot about our purpose as freshman council members, why we want to do what we want to do, and also goal planning throughout the year. It's just a great way for all of us to really meet each other, to get in our committees for the first time, and start spouting off ideas that you guys want to have for the rest of the year. So it's just a really great opportunity to kind of start off the year super big, super inclusive, and super fun.
Do you guys want to touch a little bit each about, like, I know all three of Aidan's retreat was the most similar to how it's going to be this year. Ilona definitely had a different one because of COVID, and Faith's wasn't overnight, but do you guys want to kind of touch on your favorite parts about the retreat?
Yeah. So my retreat was, to give a little context, it was a 1 day kind of blitz to get to know everyone. We were able to meet the executive officers at the time, and then pick our committees in kind of like a Hunger Games kind of cutthroat style, which we won't be doing this year. But my year, it was really they basically set out tables, and each table was dedicated to a committee, and you sat at the one you wanted, and you basically didn't move until someone told you to move. Yeah, it was very,
That is harsh.
it was very harsh. Like I was planted at that inclusion equity table, and there was some hearts had to be broken, but it won't be like that this year, I promise. But what was really cool about the retreat was, at least my year, I think that we spent a really good amount of time brainstorming what we wanted to do through the course of the year as a committee and as a council, and that was really exciting because it was the first time I think we all got to see just how diverse our FROCO class was as people, but also as leaders and as thinkers. And there were so many amazing ideas that came out of that time, just to like really sit and have nothing to do but goal set and collaborate and think. And it was really probably one of the best parts of the retreat that I remember. So yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and then and my retreat was overnight. I want to say it was 2 nights that we stayed. It was kind of like a weekend long, yeah. And we kind of got there, did a lot of team building. We got to like know each other's names. One of the things that I really took away from the retreat was just the connections that I made with the other FROCO members. It can kind of be hard because when we are like separated into committees and stuff, you feel like you can kind of get closed in. But as Ilona touched on earlier, it is like a big collaborative thing. You are all one team. And I think the retreat was when I felt the most like we were one team. You're getting to meet everyone for the first time, and you're getting to really like visualize what the year is going to look like. And it just gets you super excited. And I think my favorite memory that came out of the retreat was we hung out one night and made s'mores by a bonfire. And it was just super fun because it wasn't anything that was guided. There was no like activity. There was nothing. It was simply just us talking with other people. And that was just kind of like super great. We got to know a lot about each other. Yeah, so it was definitely a good time, and I'm definitely super thankful for the retreat.
Yeah, and I want to quickly piggyback off of a point that Faith just made. I think it's really important to also think about, like, within freshman council, for a lot of the members, this is their first time really meeting other freshmen, other than that, the ones that are in their dorm or in their classes. And so what I really think we want to do this year with the retreat is create a space where, yes, we're doing a lot of the goal setting, we're introducing you to the program and goals for the year, but we want it to also be a great chance to like make some friends, really meet the people that you're about to work with for the next 9 months or so. So like we definitely want it to be icebreaker is a horrible term to use, but we want it to be a chance to break the ice, really get to know the people you're about to collaborate with, and learn more about yourself as a leader, as a friend, as a teammate, and establish those connections. Because I think obviously the professional relationships that you keep from freshman council are great, but the friendships you keep from it are just as important, and that's really what we want to advertise.
To sort of piggyback off of Aidan, my freshman council retreat was the first time we all met in person. So I walked into Russell House Ballroom and I just saw like 40 strangers that I had maybe seen over Zoom, but we didn't really talk over Zoom. We all just kind of sat there in our little squares. And so it was really all about like, oh my God, okay, these are actual people. Like they're like it's an actual like there's like 40 people, 40 plus people in here. And then like all of the exec board was sitting at the front of the room. It was like a really overwhelming process in a sense, but it was so much fun because once those walls came down, we all kind of were like, oh my gosh, like this is actually happening. Like we're in freshman council. You're an actual person. Wow. Hi, nice to meet you. And we kind of all like bonded over that. One thing to note, Faith and Aidan, please do not do the icebreaker where you have to go around and say every single person's name, because I sat at the back of the ballroom and I had to go around and say everyone's name, and it was so terrifying, and that gave me so much anxiety. So I do not do that icebreaker.
Just so you know, I also, my freshman year, was the last person in line because we played that game every year, and I also was the last person, so I had to go around and say everybody's name. And you know what? It's a terrible game because it gives everyone anxiety and we all like freak out. But honestly, I can still remember like majority of people's names and the little like, we did like hand symbols or like little signs or whatever with them as well. And I can still remember like everybody's. So I guess it definitely like benefited in a way, but yes, in the moment it was terrible, and I was like, please don't make me do this.
We would always do that in my high school, and I like hated it so much. I'd just be like practicing in my head like the whole time.
Yeah, the entire time I'm sitting there and I was just like, okay, this person, I'm like trying to write it down or something. I'm like, I don't want to. But yeah, I felt good because there was a couple of people at the very top of the line that were messing up, and I'm like, okay, well, they're only having to memorize 5 names, so I don't think anybody is going to hold against me when I have to try and memorize all 40.
Yeah, and then what to add on to that, we were all sitting 6 feet apart too, so I could like I could barely see their faces. They would stand up and like say their name or something, and I was like, I think you're Blair. I don't know. You could be KJ, like all this different stuff. But I think that's what I liked about the retreat the most. Like, sure, it was really scary, and I was like putting myself out there, but like it made so many memories, and honestly it's so much better than Zoom, and I don't know, it was a good experience overall.
That's what college is all about: taking risks, getting out of your comfort zone, meeting new people, making those like type of memories.
Yeah, and like if you mess up, like walk up to someone and be like, oh my God, like I can't believe I just did that, and then you could laugh about it together. Like no one takes it that
easy way to make a friend, kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of those like fun memories that you guys have from your retreat, what would you say your kind of like most favorite memories from your whole freshman council like experience were?
Oh gosh.
That's a lot.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I had to pick one, I'm sorry if I'm stealing this from either you two ladies, but like trick-or-treating at the president's house is always really fun. So my freshman year, I had, I think probably, this is not necessarily Froco related, but I had, I think, the best Halloween costume I've ever put together. There's photos of it somewhere, you'll find them. But that was a really cool experience because the work we've been doing had been so, I guess like we've been very focused on like getting our programming done and doing a lot of like, you know, kind of heavy work. And it was a really nice kind of breather, just kind of in the middle of the semester, like, hey, we're going to go dress up in costumes at the president's house and hand out candy. And this was pre-COVID, so it was obviously a much different situation, but it was really funny. And at the time, President Pastides was our president, and he had this like grand kind of costume on. It was like, he was like a Greek god of some sort. And then his wife, Patricia Pastides, Queen, she was like a Greek goddess, and they really kind of nailed it. And I had these like really kind of cheap like monkey ears. I was supposed to look like Arthur, and it came together really well, but they couldn't tell what I was, and just watching them like guess was really, really funny. So that was probably my best memory because everyone came in with really funny costumes and we all had a great time. it was just like a really fun experience, like get to, meet the president in such a casual way. Like, typically interact with the university president while they're in costume. So that was kind of fun. But yeah, that's my memory.
No, I have to agree with you. I'm gonna tell a different one, but I have like such a great like story from that. When we went to the president's house, it was President Caslin, and it was storming that day, and there was actually like tornado warnings happening. So all the alarms on campus were like blaring, and we're all sitting there texting each other in our FROCO group chat, and we're like, is this still happening? Like, are we still going to the president's house and giving out candy? Because like there are sirens going off on campus right now. Like we were all very confused, and we ended up going anyway. And we actually all got like shuffled into this one room at some point because the winds got so bad. So I will forever remember that like during a tornado, I was stuck inside the university president's house in his kitchen because there weren't many windows. So yeah, so that is definitely a great memory. But I have to say my favorite is like one of the things you'll find from FROCO is that when it comes to like applying for freshman councils, obviously students that want to get involved, students that want to be active students. And so they're not just getting involved in FROCO, they're getting involved in so many other areas of campus. So I was also in the Residence Hall Association, which I still am. And we had like a little group of us in FROCO that were all in RHA. And so my favorite memory is that in the 30 minutes we had between our freshman council meeting from 6 to 7 and then our RHA meeting from 7:30 to whenever we ended, we would go downstairs in Russell House because it was in the same room as both in the Senate chambers. So we would literally go in that 30 minutes and we would go hang out and like eat food in Russell. And it was honestly just like such a good group of us because it made us like so close because we were literally together for like 5 hours on Thursday afternoons. But it was just like super great to like meet other people that are interested in the same things that as you are, or people who are also involved in the same things that you are. And so that is definitely like my favorite memory is like those little dinners that we had.
Aww. What about you, Ilona?
Now I feel like I have to tell my Halloween story. It's not my favorite memory, but it's definitely a funny memory. Our FROCO leaders told us, I think it was the Thursday before Halloween. They're like, hey, everyone, like, come to your meeting, like, in costume, all this stuff. Being the person I am, like, I go full on frat boy, like, get a polo shirt, like, draw a mustache on my face, like, backwards hat, got my chubbies on, like, Crocs and Nike socks. I pull up to the meeting, and they were like, everything as normal, and then at the very end, I still get so scared. They announce like, okay, yeah, like they start listing off names, and they're like, okay, group 1, you're going to the president's house. And I kind of sat there in my seat like, huh? Like we had no clue this was happening. They're all just like, up and go, president's house. And then they kind of explained it on the way there of like, oh yeah, like usually like freshman council like helps hand out candy, but this year like he still wanted to meet you guys, but you'll just get a tour of his house. So I like pull up full on like frat boy. There was one other girl that was dressed as a frat boy too, and we were standing next to each other like, oh my god, like we're really about to meet the president, like dressed up as boys. What? And so like again, like kind of like bonding through anxiety in a sense of like, oh my god. And I remember we were all standing in his living room and he was like going around and we were each introducing each other. And he looks at me and he goes, what's your name? And I'm like, oh, I'm Ilona Donovan. Like, it's very nice to meet you. I'm a freshman. I'm majoring in PR, all this stuff. And he goes, he turns his head and he goes, oh, okay. And then moves on to the next person. He kind of looked confused by the whole outfit. But yeah, again, just full on like anxiety mode, but in the end it ended up being fine. And
I'd be so embarrassed if I was like dressed up like that, like a mustache drawn on my face, and they're like, you're going to meet the president.
Yes, I know. And I was like, oh, and everyone else like maybe had like cat ears on, like a cat costume. Some people literally just showed up in their like business casual, and I was like, okay, whatever, that's fine. But I wish I would have had a little warning because I definitely would have dressed up as something else. But my favorite FROCO memory was probably when campaigning started. because that was a more casual way that I got to bond with people, and it was like outside of our little Froco bubble. So it was a lot more of just like, oh, okay, we're working together on something like outside of, student government and something like bigger than ourselves. And yeah, I won't get in too much into campaigning, but it was just like a huge bonding experience, and I met a lot of my favorite people from it.
Going off of that, because kind of being in freshman council kind of got you into campaigning, what do you guys think are like big impacts that freshman council like had on your experience? So I think that's a great thing about freshman council, that while you are only in it for your freshman year, it has like lasting effects all throughout college.
Yeah, I think there's two things that really stand out to me. The first one being like the event planning and the programming. That's huge. I think it obviously varies for different freshmen as they come in, but for me, I wasn't. I was involved in a lot of programs in high school, but never was at like the planning like position in any of them. So to be now in a spot where I'm in a smaller committee planning events that are going to reach the entire student body or reach, a portion of the class, like there was so much I learned from that I was able to take into other roles, as I moved up in student government and as I moved, elsewhere too, on campus. That was really, really helpful. I think the second thing also, just going back to the mentoring, and I think even beyond that, just the networking in general, the people you meet while you're in freshman council, whether it be guest speakers that come into meetings, whether it be a mentor and their friends or people that they work with, or anybody in between, you end up creating relationships that stand the test of time and kind of carry you through the rest of that year and into the rest of your college career. And I know people that I met my freshman year through freshman council have helped me, get into different positions within student government, have helped me like look at different avenues for myself beyond just, what I thought I wanted to do, and have helped me, look at different interests and look at different pathways. So it's really about the people. Like that to me is the biggest impact that Froco's had on my life, is the people I've met, the people it's led me to meet, and all of that. So that's what I would say is the biggest impact.
To sort of like go off of that, I think it's also really important to figure out who you are as a leader in Froco too, especially like within the little committees. It's like not saying it's like a low risk situation where if you mess up, it's not a huge deal. Like it's not the end of the world. Which is something like my committee learned, is because we were trying to host all of these events and do all this stuff, but then there was like COVID, and so we couldn't necessarily do that, and so we had to like work our way around certain precautions and stipulations and stuff like that. And then it was sort of like learning who you are in a team environment. I think that was a big thing for me too, of like, okay, so this is going to be our committee leader, and then this person is going to be in charge of contacting the people that we need to. And then like my specific role I found is like, I really like making graphics and like making sure that everything is communicated specifically, which kind of sort of led me to my major now, which is public relations. And so it's like, it's learning how you work in a group and discovering like what you enjoy doing and dividing up the tasks and stuff like that.
I really like that you mentioned that, because I do think it's an important aspect of freshman council that people don't always understand, is not everyone in freshman council is what you would think of as a typical leader, like the person to always speak up. There's like so many different styles of leadership and so many different ways that you can have a group of like 7 people and all of them be leaders and the group still works together. So I really like that you pointed that out.
Yeah. And one thing that like a bunch of my like other Froco members and I would talk about a lot is that like we're all type A people, obviously. We're all in student government. We all want to get stuff done. And we kind of, especially my year, we all had to take a step back and be like, okay, I can't do everything myself. I have to rely on the people around me. And so again, it's just like team working and all of that stuff, which I enjoyed. That was probably my favorite part.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think to kind of piggyback off that, we call Froco a lot of times, your stepping stone. And I think that's one of the great things about freshman council is that it is trial and error, and it's okay to try something and realize, okay, maybe I'm not that great at that. Like, I'm not that great at making graphics. Don't ask me to do it. I understand this now. So it's good to kind of trial and error to figure out what you are good at. And like she said, to figure out, your leadership style of, where do I fit best and how can this help me going forward in college? Whether it's, joining different organizations, your professional career, or continuing on in student government, is the things that you learn in freshman council will stick with you and be able to help you through all of that, because it is a time for you to be like, okay, I want to learn how to be a leader. I want to learn how to make an impact on my Carolina community. So this is how I'm going to do it. And I'm just going to have to, figure it out from here, trial and error, until you kind of figure out the style that you like. And I think also we've all touched obviously on like the people that you meet. And I think that was my biggest impact as well, is just the people that I got to meet. When I was a member of freshman council, I can remember saying a million times, I don't want to do Senate. I don't really like it. It's not for me. It's not my style. And then I got the opportunity to go represent FROCO at a Senate meeting. And then the next thing you know, I'm chief of staff to the speaker. So, it definitely is you, where you think you're going to start out freshman year is not where you'll most likely end up when you start applying for stuff. It definitely can change you the more that you learn and everything. So, all those people that helped me along the way, like obviously our former speaker, JD, he obviously helped me a lot and was a great mentor to me. And then, like I said, that group of us that were all in FROCO and RHA and hung out, they're literally still my best friends to this day. I talk with them all the time. So it's just such a great opportunity to really find yourself and find your place at Carolina, which can be so scary as a freshman, especially coming to such a large university. You're coming out of high school where you graduated with maybe like 500 people, and then that's a big high school. And then you get to college and it's like, oh yeah, no, there's thousands of us here. You're never going to walk by the same person twice. And so it definitely can feel very overwhelming and very scary, but freshman council really makes it feel so much smaller. And then it really helps you start to build that community that you're going to carry with you.
So now that we kind of talked to everyone, so now that everyone that's listening knows a little bit more about like what freshman council is about, let's kind of talk about the application process. I know they kind of want that info, especially since there's only a couple weeks until the deadline. So Faith, do you kind of want to talk about the application side of it and the due date, how to get to it, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so the application is pretty simple. We obviously ask for like your basic, information, and then ask you a couple of different questions about leadership, about, maybe like some hardships that you had to run in through, or that you've had to run into. But the way you get to it is it's on your Garnet Gate. So you'll go to Garnet Gate, and then you'll sign in with your U of SC email and password. You can search up student government, go down to the bottom, it's under forms. Click on it and you can fill out the application. Just make sure at the very end you click the blue submit button. That is very, very important. I know a lot of times people skip that step, so make sure you click it. And the application deadline is on September 2nd. So, and then right after that, we immediately start interviews. So it's a super fun process. Honestly, to anybody that listens to this, or to anybody that does decide to apply, it's honestly such a big step to even apply, to say, you know what, I want to be an active student. I want to do this. It's hard, it's competitive. And so you being willing to do that, and you being willing to put the work in, to prepare for your interview, to come in, to do it, to do the application, to fill all of it out, is already just so commendable. So we can't recommend you guys enough to apply, and it's super easy, and you'll definitely have a great experience no matter what.
Do you guys have any, as 3 people who got into freshman council, do you guys have any tips for the application?
Yeah, I definitely think just be yourself. The application specifically is, kind of going to be our first impression of you. So definitely show off, talk about how great you are, talk about the awesome things that you've got to do, whether, in high school or maybe in church or whatever you're involved in. And so, definitely show off and be yourself, show off your personality. We love every walk of life that comes through and sends in an application, and we want it to be as diverse and really showcase how great Carolina is, and how many different types of students we have. So it's super important to show yourself off, be yourself, and make sure that you meet the word count.
Yeah, no, Faith definitely hit the nail on the head there. I think there's no quintessential perfect freshman council member ideal that we all hold in our heads that we're looking at when we look at these applications. We just want you to really put your truest self forward. It's a chance to brag about yourself. I know that's not the easiest thing to do, but definitely, like, this application is a chance for you to showcase who you are. And then if you get an interview, that's even more of a chance to let us, hear about you and hear about your successes and hear about how you've made it through times where you weren't super successful and how you bounce back from that. So, like, take the chance to really be reflective of yourself, and in very broad terms, like, it's a chance to brag about yourself. So, like, definitely, celebrate yourself. Like, we want to hear about what makes you so great, and we want that to lead you into freshman council, hopefully. So just be yourself and put your best foot forward.
I also want to emphasize that it really isn't about how much you did in high school. It's more about your passion to change the future and to change USC. Because now you're at USC. It's not about how much you were involved in at high school. I know I didn't have the best high school experience. I changed schools a lot, so I didn't really get to like plant seeds in high school. And so that's where I focused a lot of my work, is like, hey, I really want to have a community and I really want to make this community a better place. And so it's not necessarily about like, oh, I've done this, this, and this. I've done this internship, all this other stuff. It's about like how passionate you are and how willing and motivated you are to, make Carolina a better place.
I love that. I think that's super. That was a great way, like perfectly worded. I'd also probably add my one tip. Definitely, I know Faith touched on this, is there is a word minimum on the application. We added that this year just because in the past, a lot of people were maybe answering within like one sentence, because I know at a lot of high schools, student government might not be super competitive. At my high school, I felt like it was only me who wanted to do it. But at USC, we actually have a huge student government. It is competitive. There's over 6,000 people in the incoming freshman class, and we only take about 40. So not even everyone gets an interview. So I would just say, don't stress out about it, but just make sure you guys like put your best foot forward. Like Faith kind of said, like, show off. This is your time to like shine and really let us know like who you are, what you're passionate about, all that great kind of stuff. So the kind of the way the process would go is you submit your application, then we'll reach out to you about interviews if you got one. Aidan, do you kind of want to talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so we'll interviews this year, we'll actually get to do them in person, thank goodness. So we're gonna send out more details about that, of course. But we'll reach out to you, of course, after the application is submitted, do an interview probably September 3rd through September 8th. It's looking like right now, so that through that Labor Day weekend, of course not Saturday, we know there's a football game, so don't stress now. Don't let that be the reason you don't apply, okay? Don't let that be the reason. But through that week, and then of course the retreat will follow that weekend after interviews are done. So it's a pretty quick turnaround, but we're gonna get to do the interviews in person this year, which we're really excited about. We'll get to kind of see you one-on-one and just have more of a conversation with you, ask you some more questions. But yeah, no, we're really looking forward to it, and it's always a fun time. So definitely, come ready, come prepared, and we're looking forward to it.
Do you guys want to touch on your interview experience and any tips you guys might have?
I think I don't. Yeah. So as far as like interview tips, it's hard to like, I don't know, give you a full like interview crash course on such a short amount of time. I think the biggest tip that I've received when it comes to interviewing is like, and it's something we've already kind of touched on with the application, but it's the same energy with the interviews. Like, be your authentic self. Like, don't come into the interview and try to be this perfect person. Don't try to come in and not be, who you're going to be if you're picked. Like, we don't want to interview one person, then you get selected and end up being someone completely different. Like, that we want you to just put your truest self forward. And when you do that in the interview, it shows. Like, it's very easy to tell, on both ends. It's easy to tell when someone's not necessarily being themselves. And then when you go into an interview and try to be someone different, it's really difficult because, you're not used to, who you're trying to be, the way you're trying to present yourself. So just speak from the heart and be yourself. And at the end of the day, it's more of it's more of an extended way for us to get to know you. I wouldn't take the interview as like some kind of trick. This is not the SATs. Like, it's really just another way for us to like talk to you, see your personality, like, and really hear your voice. It's hard to, obviously tell through reading an application everything about a person. Like, it's just another step for us to get to know you. So don't overthink it. But of course, come prepared and just be yourself. That's all we can ask for.
Yeah, I really can't echo Aidan enough there. I won't give any tips because I think he hit the nail on the head. But I will tell you about my FROCO interview. I walk in, well, I'm standing outside waiting to walk in. And there's a girl sitting next to me and she looks very nice. And I am like, hey, are you here for the FROCO interview? And she was like, oh, yeah, I am. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, what's your name? Like, are you a freshman? Where are you from? And then she was like, oh, I'm actually not a freshman. I'm doing the interview. And I was like, great. I love that. I'm so glad that I just assumed that about you. And then I walk in and I go through my whole interview. I'm talking about high school, other things I was involved in, And I had my wallet or my phone sitting on my lap because I didn't want to put it on the table. And I ended up dropping it halfway through the interview and it tumbled out into the floor, into the middle of everyone. And everyone was staring at me. And I was like, I'm really sorry. Like, I didn't mean to drop my phone just now. I'm not even going to pick it up. That's just very embarrassing. I'm just going to move on like it never happened. And so my interview definitely did not go the way I walked in there and hoped it did, but I definitely can say I showcased my personality pretty perfectly. And it just so happens that even though I went in and I flubbed a little, I still obviously got in. They still obviously saw me for who I was, knew that I was passionate, knew that I wanted to do this. So definitely go in there. We see you. We understand. It can be very nerve-wracking, especially when it's like one of your first days here on campus. It's one of your first weeks here. And, you're really just trying to figure everything out. It can be very nervous when you have to walk into an interview of all these student government upperclassmen that are like staring you down. So definitely just go in, be confident, know that you can do it. And even if you mess up, it's okay. Just move along. And, obviously we see you, we hear you, and it'll all be fine in the end.
Yeah, my interview was online and I spent all day preparing for it. I was like stressing out so much. I was like, I gotta set up like a background for my Zoom call. And then it was like business professional. So I had to find like business professional clothes, all this stuff. And I got there like 5 minutes early. I was super stressed about it. And then I get in and it maybe lasted 10 minutes at most. It was really short. But like I was genuine, I was authentic. I answered them truthfully. I remember there was one question that they asked that was, it was like what kitchen appliance you'd be. Like the questions are just not that serious. It's a get to know you conversation. And I think I said like blender or something because like all this other, like it really isn't that serious. But then I remember after the interview, I came back into my dorm and I just like looked at my roommate and I was like, they only talked to me for like 5 minutes. I'm not gonna get it. And I like started crying and all this stuff. And yeah. But in the end, like I ended up getting it. And it's just, I remember talking to other people who applied and they're like, yeah, we had a super cool conversation. It lasted like 20 minutes, blah, 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 like all this other stuff. And I really can't emphasize it enough. It's basically a get to know you conversation. Like if you're not the type of person to like talk for 20 minutes, like I'm not, then that's okay. Like as long as you answer truthfully and you're yourself, and maybe you don't even like know yourself that well. That's why I said blender. I was like, I'm a blender because I'm a mix of a whole bunch of different stuff. I'm a very flexible person. Like just answer truthfully and you'll be fine. In the end, it's not that serious.
So last question I have for you guys today is if there's anyone listening right now that is still a little hesitant about applying for freshman council, still not sure if they actually want to go on Garnet Gate right after this and fill it out, what would you kind of say then? What advice would you have?
So my advice, okay, old man senior Aidan Baker here with the long-winded advice. I'm going to try to make this as concise as possible. So I graduated from a pretty small private school. And so coming into USC obviously was like going from like a lake to the ocean. So like it's a big jump. But one of the best pieces of advice I received from my college counselor was you can make a big school feel small, but you can't make a small school feel big. So if you're in my shoes as a freshman where you're coming in trying to find a community and trying to find like kind of a friend group even, or just a place to really get started, freshman council is perfect for that. Like it's a tight knit group of like minded, hardworking people, and it's a great experience to really like step out and meet someone and like really build your first kind of community of classmates and peers. And so I really think it's a great way to get started. Not necessarily, definitely if you want to continue in student government, it's a great launching pad for that. But even beyond, like I said, the networking, the mentorship, the people you meet, there's so many doors that will open for you just from this program alone. So definitely like take that chance. And I think, it's the best decision I made. I know I wouldn't be sitting here like on this Zoom call right now, like talking about this if I hadn't done freshman council. Like this is very full circle for me to have been in the program and now be a co-director. And there's so many other members from my class who have done such amazing things in their time. And I know freshman council was like that starting base for them. So definitely, take that chance and just go for it, because college is a fresh start. It's a clean slate for a lot of incoming freshmen, and it's a really great chance to just get involved and start to make a name for yourself and find yourself as a leader, as a student. So definitely go for it.
Yeah, I think to piggyback off that, one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was from my mom. And it was about high school athletics. And I was trying out for a team. And my mom looked at me and she was like, Faith, you're already not on the team. You can't be any more not on the team. And she's like, so if you don't try out, you're not going to be on the team. And she's like, so it's not just going to magically happen. And I think that is like advice that definitely applies to this situation, because it's like, if you want to get involved on campus, if you want to be in freshman council, apply. There's nothing stopping you from applying except yourself. So definitely do it. You're already not on freshman council, so if you want to be on it, you have to apply. And so that's kind of my advice, is just go for it. Even if you don't get it, there's still so many other things you can do within student government and so many other things you can do on campus. It definitely will not hinder your student experience. It's not going to be anything like that. The only thing it's going to do is you just won't get it, and that's okay. And you know what? And if you do get it, then you have like a great experience. But obviously there's just, it is what it is. And at the end of the day, like Aidan said, you just have to put yourself out there. You have to try. You're already not on FROCO. So that's my advice, is just apply, because you're already not on it. So you can't be any more not on it than you are right now.
Well, my silly short sophomore advice is just carpe diem, seize the day. just do it. Like you can't, like kind of what Faith is saying, like you can't go wrong. You will have more opportunities like in FROCO and just like your freshman year in general by just saying yes to doing things. The amount of times that like I was in hall government and RHA just simply because I read an email and I was like, I think this would be cool. Sure, I'll run. And then I ended up being the only one running. And then that led me to like being like RHA secretary and stuff like that. So by simply just being like, okay, carpe diem, yes, I'm going to do this, it will open so many opportunities and so many doors.
So Aidan and Faith, do you guys have any contact info that you want to give people in case they have any questions after this? Maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you guys have any questions, we have our U of SC Instagram, or the U of SC Student Government Instagram, our personal Instagrams, or our emails. Mine is fgravley@email.sc.edu.
Yeah, and then so my student email is aidannb@email.sc.edu. I know it's probably hard to like guess, but it's all you'll be able to find it. I'm really easy to reach. So if you have any questions, you can email us there. And we have a freshman council email too. And so you can.
Yeah, if you type in freshman council on Outlook, it should come up, I think.
Yeah.
And then definitely just not only if you have questions, you can DM the Instagram, but definitely follow our Instagram. It's U of SCSG. We're going to be doing a lot of events the first couple weeks of school. You can come talk to us, learn more about Freshman Council. If you are still a little hesitant and want to talk to us in person, ask any questions. We have some cool free swag. We have phone wallets that just came in. If you can see, they're really cool. So come get some swag, talk to us. We'll be posting on Instagram all about when we're going to be on Green Street and stuff like that. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening today. We can't wait to see you all on campus and hopefully see you in Freshman Council this upcoming school year.
Woo! Apply for Freshman Council. Do it. Do it now. Do it now.
I can't wait to meet everyone. Woo, woo.